Welcome. A scene is set in warehouse E3 Junction 12 in the freezer. The lights haven't been working for quite some time, and if it wasn't for those small windows at the very top that let in the absolute barest minimum of street light, you wouldn't really know what was going on in here. Thankfully, that hasn't been a problem as the past while Axel's been sitting in the dark. Nothing more than his cigarette lighting his face on occasion. See a silhouette of another man in the room. Man he just called over. Pardon. Scrap that. I've given new information. Axel's been waiting. He's been waiting for Howard Holliday. The recent events have made things all too clear that it's now the Malkavians that need to get in line. If that's not bad enough, Axel's now solely responsible for the actions of Howard Holliday, his actions thus far being questionable at best, and at worst should warrant a blood hunt. Still, if we can fix this little error, best do so and best do so quickly. At this point, he can't treat Howard as a friend. Not yet, anyway. He needs to relearn what he's learned. He needs to learn to apply himself. So he sits there, puffing on a cigarette, waiting. Something catches his attention. Not sure where that's coming from. It's like there's a little bit of light in the warehouse. He stands, starts looking about. So much so his eyes hyper focus. And he starts tracing the light, looking for it. Where the fuck's in here? If it's not Howard, he's gonna need to do something rash. Howard, is that you?
Howard steps from the darkness. The small strand of silver light was coming off of the necklace that he is wearing of the silver wolf head given to him by his close friend Mutt. Hello, Axel.
Oh, well. Glad to end up seeing that you made it. So, he gestures towards some pallets that are in the racking with more of them stacked in between with a tablecloth over them, in fact. And Axel sits down on one, gestures to the one across from this makeshift table, taking his lighter to light a few candles.
Howard comes over and sits at the pallet table across from Axel. You get the candles just for a brief moment, and then just staring right back at Axel.
Howard, can you tell me the first tradition?
Out of character, lore 0, would he know it for being in the Camarilla for a year and a half?
It would be one of the very first things you taught. You would not be leaving your domain if you did not know this.
Out of character, I forget what it is. Can you... I know it sounds stupid. Since he would know it in character, could you just, type it or something?
All right. just going to end up sending you the link. So this way you don't have to worry about being able to rattle it off, because you're going to need to know this.
See here. Load. Wait. It's observance. The Masquerade.
Now, do you know this particular tenant?
Yes, Finch told me about it. That entire idea is that we must stay hidden from.
Specifically recite it, or can you? Thou shalt not reveal thy true nature to those not of the blood. Doing shall renounce thy claim to the blood. Do you know what that means?
I know what that means.
Really? Because your decision ends up saying otherwise. Now, I'm trying to piece this together, because it's bad enough when I got to explain this to the brew hall. Yeah, they get a little bit out of sorts. Fine, they got to rein them in. But first and foremost, we're going to ground you back again to basics. At this point, until said otherwise, consider yourself a fledgling. Consider yourself at the bottom of the pecking order. And the reason for this is I want to make sure that you have that solid foundation. So, again, what is the first tradition?
Thou shalt not reveal thyself to mortal kind, or our blood shall be rebuked.
Now, you understand that you're on thin ice. Believe it or not, I'm here to help with that. Now, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy that it happened in the first place. More importantly, though, I'm not happy with Zachary Volaterre. I'm not happy with this mess to begin with. But what's done is done. So, we're going to end up going over it again. What do you think you could have done when Roy decided to threaten you? What was an action you could have taken?
I could have left.
Without your legs?
Could have healed them.
What if he threatened to break them again?
I could have threatened. I could have shot him. He was already trying to kill me at that point.
Hold on. Think about it again. Remember, our existence houses on secrecy. At this point, he might get some visual attention, but you and I both know how the alarms sound.
I could have used one of my abilities.
It's a gift of the blood. Now, you're privy to a bit of knowledge that most kindred in this city are not. You're privy to knowing who my sire is. Do you know Gideon's position?
He has told me it before. I met him once when I was with my sire Finch. He is the whip of Clan Malkavian and also one of the hounds.
So you can imagine he takes his job very seriously.
Yes, he does.
Okay. Now, with that in mind, does that make my own actions suddenly come to light a little bit differently?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. So you understand on how serious I take this.
Yes.
So, first and foremost, you have a questionable bit of judgment as a scientist. How does one relieve that?
How do I relieve my judgment?
How do we how do we fix it? How do we stop this from happening again? Because if in a month's time another incident happens, it's both of our necks on the block. And while I may be Gideon's child, I can almost assure you that he doesn't pick favorites when the job comes into line. I know this because I've seen it.
We could fix my judgment because I truly can't think of one. All I can... guess I could just stop going along with plans, like always. I say I'm an objectivistic individual sometimes, but I've sometimes just followed the crowd and the mass like it's nothing. I feel like a hypocrite for what I did.
You are. But that's fine. That can be relieved. Now, the other thing that is currently saving you is the sixth tradition.
Sixth, you say?
Mhm.
Would that be... I
Thou
think...
art forbidden to destroy another of thy kind. The right of destruction belongeth only to thine elder. Only the eldest among thee can call the blood hunt.
I see.
That being said, most of them are looking for any excuse to plug up holes and potential problems. Remember what they said about it's about risk and reward, proper assessment?
I remember.
Then that means that they've assessed you to be worth a reward despite the risk you entail. Why is that?
Why is that? I'm a risk simply because I have shown myself to be a hypocrite of my own volition. But the reward is that I could be a valuable asset to the Alcavians.
So how do we do that? How do you show that you're an asset without causing further risk? Especially now since you're on very thin fucking ice, my friend.
Howard thinks about this longer than he himself thinks he should. I don't truly know how. I just don't have an answer. I can't think of anything.
That's the problem, Howard. And that's a very big problem, especially for you, but also for the entire clan. Everyone needs to step up. Stefan, for all of his needs to get involved, doesn't incur this kind of trouble. But he is useful, very skilled. Skilled craftsman, good insight, and on occasion, his experience outside of the city can be used. Myself, I don't think I need to go on much than to say that I work very hard for what I have, and no one's given me a goddamn thing about it. I earned what I got. You, on the other hand, well, you want to sit around and be a loner, that's all fine, but somebody's going to rake you in eventually. Now, I'm going to make the assumption here that is I don't know the man myself, save through reputation. That Finch brought you in for a reason.
Finch. I can never get a straight answer out of that man.
That's fine. You don't need a straight answer, but you need an answer to the question. Howard, what can you provide? What can you do at all? Because if you can't answer that question within only a few days' time, I will be forced to end up saying that this is a wasted effort.
I guess I could bring my academics to the field.
That's a start. How do you bring them?
My research that I've been doing into our condition, namely. I've learned things, strange things that I don't even know if science could provide a valuable answer, but if they could, that could be just that. His eyes kind of widen for a second, and as you notice, they just sort of wander off of your gaze. He's just sort of just looking off into the distance while talking at this point. Just the entire new field of discovery. It's the only thing that I can stay alive for. Well,
No, it's not the only thing, Howard. It's not the only thing at all. It's a start. But I need you to also consider, again, the first tradition. If you pursue this, you will never be recognized for it. And every discovery you make cannot, in any way, have any ties to what you are.
I know that.
Howard, saying you know it and showing you know it are two different things. You said before you were an objectivist, and by your own volition, you said that was you acted hypocritically. So, I know by your actions that you're inconsistent. It's not an accusation, that's an observation. Now, just because you know something doesn't mean you act on it. And just because you think you know something doesn't mean you do. I need to find a way. In fact, what my own objective is in this particular endeavor is to make sure that you contribute something tangible, hard evidence, Howard, that you are on board, that you understand these things, that you understand the traditions. And so I'm going to keep hammering them into your head until I know they are not something you remember reading. They are tenets you live by. It's only through that will I be convinced, and then maybe be able to convince the others that you are worth keeping around. Because they're the only things that keep us going. We live in secrecy and shadow.
I understand that we do that, sir, and I'm not saying from when I say the discoveries, man should not know of us. Mankind is an ignorant child compared to what we are. Are they lesser to us because of this? No. Mentally, we are still the same, but they fear us.
Really? You think mentally we're the same? Would you then explain Lothario?
Lothario?
Think very carefully. That's not something that you would even remotely describe as human.
From what I say about that, sir, when I say mentally we are the same, we have emotion. We both, mankind and kindred, as we call ourselves, can fear. And we fear each other. They fear what goes bump in the night, and they like to push that out of their minds, and that's good. But we fear them what would happen if they don't push that out of their mind? What if they pursue finding that? They don't need to know, and they shouldn't. And I agree with that. What I did that night was callously idiotic.
That's good. That's good. It's a start. So, the problem is that right now we're stuck with each other. So let's find a way to make this work. You are here for one reason and one reason only. Can you tell me what that is?
I am here because you are now responsible for my actions, and you are not, and you need to I need to prove myself loyal.
And you're saying this like a scolded child. You're not
Pardon?
saying this just the tone of voice, the mannerisms. Howard, I read people. That's what I do. I watch those ticks. I know what people are going to do before they do it. That's how I stay ahead of the curve. If I'm asking you something, if I'm telling you something, it's because I know you're probably going to react in this way or that way. Think of it like a mathematical calculation. 2 plus 2 is 4. And right now, I know that fear is a driver for you. I also know knowledge is a driver for you. Self-preservation is a driver for you. That's fine, but that's not how we're going to go about this. We're going to go about this as academics, as philosophers. We're going to have you learn the traditions and Camarilla life to an intricacy that any neonate who's worth their salt will end up dead. He has seen your example, not your words, your example. And they'll say, this is the one who you follow. If you want to understand on how to keep on going. It wouldn't take much for Lothario to find you, not with the ties he has. And I know Gideon would find you in a heartbeat, no matter where you hid. So you're kind of in a situation where you shape up or ship out. Personally, I want to make you ship it. I don't ship up, but shape up, pardon. But I need to know how to do that with you, Howard. And the biggest way I can think right out of the gate is trying to have you see what kind of mess that I have to end up looking after. So, Axel pulls out some, and these are Polaroids. And he starts putting them down, one after another, right in front of you. And there's 7 of them.
Howard is looking at them.
One is what's left of a man. He is literally cut and quartered. In suitcases, the garbage bags are torn open, wrapped up with duct tape, and you can see everything from his severed head to a torso to the limbs packed neatly in these 2 suitcases. Another one is that of a shoreline. Another one is that of an old dumpster. Another one is of a wrecked back car. Another one is of an opera house. These photos are just everywhere.
So this is what you do.
I don't like it, but sometimes bad things happen. Unfortunate things happen. He slides one out, and you can actually see this one is the body of a woman. You notice that her skin is flayed, the tendons are pulled almost artistically, pinned to one another, and almost like the skeletal structure has been taken down from something.
Howard at first reacts with revulsion. Like you can see it in his face. Like this is revolting to him. All of a sudden, though, that expression changes into a more like he's intrigued by this, and he's trying to just piece together how this was done in his head.
You know what these are?
What are they?
And he points to each one. Breaking of the first tradition. A 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 breaking of the first tradition. Every one of them. He scoops up the photos and he sets one on the candle. He starts to burn these Polaroids. Drops them on the floor to burn thoroughly. Laying on the concrete, little flames flickering up and consuming what was hard evidence. I had these taken, and I walked around with these taken. And it took me a lot of favors from some very close friends in order to end up gaining those, to end up illustrating to you what it means when you break a tradition, especially when it turns into someone else has to clean it up, because someone else is always cleaning it up. You might think you're covering it up. You're never covering it up, not fully. There's always somebody, more pull, better sway, better connections, who needs to clean it up. And unfortunately, those loose ends make more loose ends, which make more loose ends, and that spirals out of control, Howard. And the worst part is, these just a sliver of some of the breaches that end up happening. And they happen because neonates know the first tradition.
I see.
What do you see?
I see now what happens when we break the law of this ancient society that has been around for I don't know how long.
Neonates say they know the first tradition.
But they don't actually. But they say they know it, but they don't follow it.
Yeah. Which, when somebody comes up to you, puts a gun in your hand, tells you to make a distraction, that's garnering attention. Every time attention is garnered, the risk of the first tradition. Every time.
Howard is just looking off again, staring at the fire and the candle just for a brief second, but then just looking off. Looks like he's thinking about something. That this is reminding him of something that once happened to him before all of this. Sorry. Just thinking.
See, now I have wonderful little technicality. Because I want you to recite the third tradition, if you can.
The third tradition?
Thou shalt only sire another which, with the permission of thine elder. If thou creation, or if thou createst another without thine elders, leave, both thou and the progeny shall be slain. It also follows to the fourth tradition, that of accounting. This is the one that, while the third tradition makes perfect sense and applies to you and Finch, I'm more worried on the fact that this leads to the fourth.
Accounting.
And unfortunately, that's where the problem lies. I didn't embrace you, Howard and Holiday. I didn't bring you into this. But now, that tradition binds me to you. Go ahead. What do you think it means? Better yet, what does it say verbatim?
Out of character, just saying that in just the link you sent me doesn't actually say it verbatim.
No worries. That's fine. Play on that. Does Howard know it?
He
if
was
he
taught.
can't, that's
Finch,
what Axel's. That's
Finch,
what Axel's here for.
Finch did teach him these, so I'll just say, yeah, out of character. In character, he does say it verbatim. Howard.
Thou shalt create. Pardon. Thou shalt create. Those thou create are thine own children. Until the progeny shall be released, thou shalt command them in all their doings. Their sins are thine to endure. That last part of the accounting is the thing that really ruffles me, because now I'm accountable for you. Your fuck ups are now my fuck ups.
I see. I apologize for what I've done.
You've already apologized. Your apology isn't what I'm looking for. I have no interest in your apology right now.
My word, my actions, you hold me accountable for both, and now I must follow you, and I must follow. I will not. I promise you, I will not ruin this again.
You have an opportunity here, Howard. I'm going to drill you on this. I'm going to make sure that when this month is out, you will not only be able to recite the traditions, but you will understand them more intimately than any other kindred of your age. And because you'll know them, you'll know the Camarilla, you'll be able to learn more without me. You'll be able to build up. But this always builds back to that first question. Well, not first, but that most important one. Why are you here? What do you bring to the table? And my first thought is, if you are so academically inclined, There's one thing every kindred needs. And you have the academia to start bringing it. More than information, more than favors, more than boons, more than money. We can subsist without any of this. There's only one thing that we need.
What is that?
Blood.
Blood.
Plain and simple. Baseline survival. I told you, we're going to bring this right down to basics. There's not a kindred on this planet, at least to my knowledge, who can continue without it. And everything else is just another way to get it.
I see.
If you're responsible, you can produce this nectar of the gods, and you can do it humanely. Be honest with you, what I saw with Lothario and his friend, that disgusted me.
The girl?
Yeah. That disgusted me.
It did to me as well, actually.
Then we need a better alternative.
Do you know what I usually feed from?
Go on.
Oh, animals, Mr. Linwood. I feed from animals. I do not want to take it from humans. It is theft.
And yet if you take from an animal, you're now poaching, killing.
The question is, do I kill them every time I take from them?
I'm going to tell you right now, Howard. I'm going to teach you how I hunt, how I feed. We're going to start with the basics. We're going to rebuild you with not only understanding the basics, but how it ties back into the traditions, how it ties back into our existence. I don't see any reason to treat human beings as cattle. I also don't see any good that can come from us denying what we are.
I'm not denying it. What I am, I still consider myself human from when it comes to my emotions. But when it comes to everything else, when it comes to my hunger, my biology, and all of that, I am no longer a human being, and I do not deny that.
I'm not so sure. But I'm not here to lay judgment on you, Holiday. I'm here to teach you. I'm here to increase your judgment. So, first things first, regarding your pets. Axel blows out the candle. There's small bits of red on the floor, the remains of the photos that have been burnt thoroughly down to nothing but ash. Axel steps on and like as if he's putting out a cigarette butt. Starts walking towards the freezer door. Thing is that dead animals, while not incurring quite as much tension, eventually start accumulating bodies. What do? You toss a dead cat in a trash bin? Maybe throw the dog into a hole or a grate. Maybe you find some squirrels and you just find some loose leaves to pitch them in. Eventually, people start noticing. People start seeing animals. It starts bringing up issues. Thing about feeding on a human being, if you're smart about it, is that you can leave a very little trace. The other bit is that you need to learn to come up with skill sets that just may not agree with you. I mean, if you were to take a human being, how would you do it? Better yet, how would you treat them?
I fed from a human once. Other than that girl, when I did, it was very odd because I didn't feel right when I did it. I may have felt some euphoric rush after taking her and biting into her neck, hidden away. It's in a dark, creeping area with no one around. But what I did, I felt horrid for it.
It's not a terrible thing to feel a certain degree of remorse. But at the end of the day, we're always asked that one question at the onset, where can we live like this? Should we just spare everybody else the trouble? You made the decision to live like this, otherwise you wouldn't have stuck around. That's great. I'm glad to have you on board, Howard. But see, when I feed, I'll tell you what, I usually put them to sleep. Usually in a place they can be found fairly easily. And I take just a few seconds, a small taster, if you will, a little bit to subside just for the night. And then I move on to another and another. I might sometimes feed 3 times a night. The reason I do this is because it's little risk to them. And I've practiced and practiced and practiced. I've made it a point that when I do, they know that something's happened, but they're never the worse for wear. They just remember this man in the red tie who said, you look tired, passed out. And when they wake up, they'll find their wallet, cell phone, and keys in their socks.
I see.
Well, you keep saying that, I see, and I keep having to ask you to elaborate. I want you to just do that as a point of habit from this point on.
Elaborate? I don't understand how you feed from them. They don't remember a thing. I noticed that with the one time I fed from a individual. They didn't remember anything afterwards. All they knew was I had lost a watch and they were helping me to find it, and all of a sudden they clonked their head against a tree and fell unconscious. That's all they thought happened.
All right. Well, if that's the case, then why do you think I take the time to put their valuables and belongings stuffed inside their socks?
I don't understand that part, actually. I didn't know that's what you meant. I thought you just meant they noticed that everything wasn't missing.
Well, that's exactly it. I don't wish harm on them. A person who's unconscious and dozing off on a park bench might have somebody who has sticky fingers trying to get involved. However, since it's a little bit too public, them being violated is minimal risk, no more than any other night anyway, every time somebody steps outside of their home. But they know something happened. They also know that they have their keys to get home, their wallet, their money, their license, the ability to get a cab, their phone to call a friend to pick them up. I want them to get home safe.
I understand now. It's very interesting.
Axel opens the door to the warehouse leading outside. The view is that of just past a few buildings, that of a bay. And Axel just waits for Howard to leave.
Howard stands, leaves. But before he leaves, he looks Axel directly in the eye. He sort of bows his head to him and says, "Good evening."
Howard, let me walk you to your car at least.
Ah,
Like I said, I take care of people. I take care of problems. And that sometimes means horrible things happen. That being said, what I want you to do is tomorrow night, I'm going to find you. And we're going to feed, you and I. We're going to spot for each other. We're going to make sure that it's done right, done clean. And we're going to make sure that you're well fed. We're also going to make sure that you have an innate understanding of why we do it the way we do. And if worse comes to worse, and at that moment, you hear a rumbling from across the bay. It's low, but you see bright light coming out. It's almost like a slight orange in the sky, almost like the sun's threatening to come up, even though it's 3 a.m. Axel.
Howard sees this and says, "What in the fuck?"
Axel starts rushing towards the water lane. He just gets as close to the bay as possible.
I'm following behind him as quickly as I can, basically.
Holy shit. And Axel looks a little closer. He's watching, and it's difficult to see, but he sees what seems like fire coming out of windows. Like some blasts have happened. Like this husk of a building. It's small explosions and small tiny flashes, and just small things going on. It's too far to see even with his eyesight.
Out of character, how far away is this actually?
Very far away. It's just a really big fucking building.
Oh, and it's just boom.
No, just one floor, then another.
It's
Little
just
bit of
going.
fire creeping up.
Oh, it's like something started, and Howard's looking at this in fear. He's actually, at this point, interestingly enough, he's looking around, even though it's very far away. He's just checking to see if everyone around here is all right and no one is hurt.
You look around and you notice probably why Axel has chosen this place. No one seems to be looking around. You seem to be fairly isolated. Probably for the best, but when you look, you swear you hear something. It's like a helicopter. It's lifting off the top of the building, and on the top of the building in neon lights, you see Sharon Group.
Oh shit.
Well, I think your putting a bullet in a window has just been trumped.
Oh god. Howard is just awestruck by this, just random like gibbering like noises trying to form sentences like oh god.
I am going to kill Voltaire. Yeah. You don't remember what I ended up saying about getting attention?
Yep.
No, this is what you don't do. Fuck's sake, Zachary. What the fuck was going on in your head?
We sure it was him.
He kind of looks to Howard like, are you serious?
Well, we don't know. I mean, who knows? It could just be a gas main fire.
As you say this,
Or
you
he could
notice
be
that the
dead.
chopper is coming very, very close to the bay. And starts to it which is weird, that same chopper, but as it gets to the bay, it suddenly starts to nosedive, and it's just going head first right into the bay.
Oh dear God!
You were saying?
Maybe maybe he's dead already.
If he's not now, he will soon will be. All right.
Oh.
Let's get out of here before they start sending rescue choppers and starting to look for the pilots. All right.
Yeah.
You still got your car's not far off. Let's go. We'll drive.
Yep. Drive. Howard just he basically he's just leading into his car. He's running like mad. He basically is running like how he ran on that night. Like, there's no finesse to it. He's just like flailing his arms out and just going as fast as he can. He smashes into his car, but is able to open the door, unlocks it for you, lets you get in, and he just basically starts driving off. Oh god! Oh god! Oh god!
Hey, calm down. This is where mistakes happen. Keep it under the speed limit. You notice Axel is he's also trying to keep his panic down a little bit because, oh shit. Axel at this point he reaches in and he starts tapping on a cigarette package, and cigarettes are pouring out en masse before he finally catches one. And oh shit.
What did they do?
That's a good question. Better question. What are we going to do about it?
We find him. And we're gonna have a talk. And at this point, you notice that right when Howard says this, you notice that any like respect or friendship he may have had for Zachary is gone. And he is smiling like angrily and manically. And that is where our scene will end.